welcome back. We have our next panel here for the seminar series, ATSV, our second iteration here for 2021. Today's topic is perspective on social compliance, buyer, manufacturer, and program viewpoints. We have our three panelists here. I'd like to introduce them one by one. But before I do, I'd like to remind everybody that we do have our Q&A at the end of the panel. So if anybody has any questions, please include them in the Q&A or chat function here on Zoom. For Facebook, please feel free to ask any questions on there, and those will be fed directly to me. I'd like to bring back Avedis Seferian, President and CEO of the Worldwide Responsible Accredited Production, or WRAP, longtime friend of the ATS brand. He's been with us since the beginning, so it's good to see you again, Avedis. Next, we have Germán Reyes. He is the Senior Manager of Global Social Compliance for Gildan. And then Daniel Sepulveda, Foreign Trade Manager for the CICEG. Welcome, gentlemen. Avedis, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jason. It is always a pleasure to be a part of these ATS seminar series. I have always maintained that one of the things your organization has done so well is pay attention to the education side of the trade show business. And as you mentioned, we've been thrilled to be partners with ATS from the beginning. I was really hoping that we would be at the point where we get to see each other in person again, but we are grateful to have the technology and the opportunity to do this, even as we continue under the shadow of this pandemic. We're able to have this on Zoom as well as live on Facebook. So technology is helping out and helping us get the message out, and we appreciate the chance to do that. As you said, what we're going to be talking about today is social compliance and providing a series of perspectives on this. This is a topic that I've generally had multiple opportunities to address at various ATS events. And I'm happy to be joined by a couple of experts to provide a multidimensional discussion this time around. And Jason introduced Germán Reyes, the Global Social Compliance Senior Manager at Gildan, a name I'm sure all of you are quite familiar with. We're also joined by Daniel Sepulveda, the Foreign Trade Manager at CICEG, or the Mexican Footwear Chamber. I'm going to have each of our panelists introduce themselves a little bit more and tell us a little bit about their organizations, and then dive into a series of questions and discussions. And as Jason said, in the end of it all, we will have the opportunity to engage in some Q&A with the audience. So with no further ado, let me invite Germán here to give us his introduction, and I'm going to launch a few slides to use as background while he talks us through his organization. Germán, the floor is yours.
Okay, good afternoon, good morning, everyone. Thank you to ATS and Avedis for this invitation for this call today. I would like to start providing an overview of who is Gildan. So Gildan is one of the world's largest vertically integrated manufacturing company of everyday basic apparel. We are a Canadian company with a headquarter office in Montreal, Canada. We have been operating the apparel business for the past 35 years. We employ approximately more than 40,000 employees worldwide in different 12 countries where we operate. And as a key element of our operations, 90% of our sales comes from our own facilities, from our own manufacturer facilities, which means we have direct control of our operations, allowing us to implement industry-leading practices when it comes to ESG topics. When I say we operate our own facilities, we include our yarn facilities located in the United States, our sewing, our garment, and our hosiery facilities located in different countries of the world. Next, please. Talking a little bit about our ESG program, our company had designed, made, and sold our program. It's embedded in the decision we make the actions we take and the future we envision as a company center in three important pillars that we defined some years ago. Creating stronger communities, conserving the environment, and the most important one, that it's the one we are going to be discussing today, it's caring for our people. That's the part where I join playing a key role in the company. So I am the Senior Global Social Compliance Manager for Gildan, ensuring that our own facilities and our contractor facilities located worldwide comply with our code of conduct, with industry leading practices that can take us to ensure human rights, health and safety, and environmental conditions are maintained in an optimal way in the different parts where we operate. Our program is based and designed in international, well-recognized accreditations and programs. Gildan Social Compliance Program was created some years ago, and we are one of the first vertically integrated companies around the world that has been accredited by the Fair Labor Association. And at the same time, we have been working for a little bit more than 15 or 16 years with our sewing facilities around the world with the RAP accreditation, as well as CEDEX to make exportations and shipments to another continents. So our program, it adheres to the RAP, to the FLA and CEDEX, and our code of conduct covers those elements that include topics related to human rights, health and safety, compensation, and all the elements that are part that ensure working conditions for workers are optimal and adequate.
Wonderful.
I will leave it there. Maybe Daniel will continue with his presentation.
Thank you, Herman. I'm looking forward to diving a little bit deeper into some of these things and getting more of your perspective and Gildan's position on social compliance. But for the moment, I think that's a wonderful segue into introduction by Daniel and his role with the Mexican Footwear Chamber. Daniel, over to you.
I want to thank you to RAP, to Avedis, to the ATS, and of course. And well, my name is Daniel Sepulveda. I'm the Foreign Trade Manager of the Mexican Footwear Chamber. The Mexican Footwear Chamber is an association located in León, Guanajuato. We are more than 500 members. All of them are manufacturers. The 50 members are exporters. And this chamber has been doing these activities, taking the companies to the high level of competitivity, to the high level of quality and certifications in order to increase our exports and to attend the domestic market. Actually, we are the 9th worldwide manufacturer. We here in León, we are manufacturing about 169 million pairs a year. So is very strong, and I invite all the buyers and the visitors to know more about the CICEG, so we can assist you developing projects together with RAP as the most important tool we have to prove the quality and the with you about Codex. Here in the industry, we decide to start this certification. The name is Codex. That we're doing for everyone, what we're doing is getting close to the companies that are willing to export, or the companies that are already exporting, to prove or to evaluate, to audit what are the competitivity in terms of cost, quality, and the infrastructure of exports. Essential part of this Codex, and without RAP, we cannot continue moving to the right necessities of the international buyers from Canada and the US. And all of the image you can see, Shoes from Mexico. Shoes from Mexico is our international brand. We represent the export companies around the world, We have presence in Central America, United States, Canada, and also Europe, promoting the companies that accomplish the Codex and GRAP, okay? And of course, GRAP is the main that we are promoting with more than 500 members, as I said, here in León, Guanajuato. So again, I think we have many opportunities to discuss today, to learn and to share between the team and the panelists. And thank you again for the invitation.
Wonderful. Thank you, Daniel. I'm looking forward to that discussion. Let me make a quick introduction of WRAP for those of you who may not be familiar with this organization. It stands for Worldwide Responsible Accredited Production. We're an independent social compliance certification program. In fact, we're the world's largest independent factory-based social compliance certification program that focuses on the sewn products industry, apparel and footwear. Our geographic focus, our industry focus may be limited, but our geographic focus is not. The W stands for worldwide, and we inspect and certify factories all over the world. The way we describe WRAP in a nutshell is that we're an objective, nonprofit team of global social compliance experts. That's who we are. What we do is promote safe, lawful, humane, and ethical manufacturing all over the world. That's our mission. That's what we do. And how we do it is through certification. That's the core deliverable, but also education, which is why we're so grateful to ATS and obviously to partners like Germán and Daniel who help spread the word and tell the world about compliance and the importance and how to achieve socially responsible practices in the supply chain. Our philosophy has always been to work with industry, working with the Gildans and the footwear chambers of the world and ATS and others, because we believe that is where change will come from. That is where the actual power to make a difference lies. And so we have, over the years, positioned ourselves as a program of choice for the industry, working with the associations. In the US, for example, we are the official CSR partner, corporate social responsibility partner of the AAFA, the American Apparel and Footwear Association. As Daniel said, we work very, very closely with CICEG, the Mexican Footwear Chamber. Likewise, in Canada, we have great relationships with the Canadian Apparel Federation. This is the design of our philosophy: work with industry to better the practices and drive the kind of improvements that we need to see. I said the W stands for worldwide. We have offices or personnel in all the major sourcing destinations. Our headquarters are in the US, in the Washington, D.C. area, in Arlington, Virginia. We have full offices in Hong Kong and Bangladesh, and full-time personnel in all these other locations that you see on the map, including, of course, coverage for Latin America and Europe, plus the major sourcing destinations in Southeast Asia. I also said that we were the world's largest program, and I just wanted to end the introduction section with just some numbers to back up that claim. Last year, even though it was a challenging year for all of us, we all know that quite well, and we'll talk a little bit about the implications of COVID and how it impacted social responsibility behavior. But we received almost 3,000 applications last year, fairly par for the course. These are our top 10 countries that you see, and obviously there's no surprise that they follow the top 10 apparel exporting countries of the world. As of the third quarter of 2021, we have just under 2,900 factories currently holding a WRAP certificate and employing altogether about 2.9 million workers in about 40 countries around the world. So that gives us a pretty large footprint. And I am very excited to be discussing some of that footprint and the implications of these practices with my friends Germán and Daniel. So let's get right into it. Germán, you gave us quite a good overview of Gildan's approach to social compliance already. I'd like your thoughts on the fact that Gildan actually wears a couple of hats. 90% of your work is from owned facilities, but there is that 10% that you actually source, where you actually have a buyer hat on. Are your expectations different? Is the approach different depending on whether you are the maker or the buyer when it comes to social compliance?
Good question, Avedis. Not at all. We set and enforce the same standards throughout our own facilities and our contractors. We apply the same rules and the same code of conduct. So we make no difference. All our operations talking about own facilities, and contractors will abide and will follow our code of conduct, that it's the document or the principle of our operations to ensure working conditions for workers are adequate and optimal.
Indeed, and that makes good sense to me. On the flip side, Daniel, when you're advising your members who export to a number of different countries, the US, Canada, obviously, and others, do you find differing expectations from the buyers depending on where they are located? And does that impact the advice you give your members when it comes to social compliance practices?
Question, Avedis. Here in CICEG, in the Mexican Footwear Chamber, we have been working with GRAP, with Monica Escobar, since about maybe 6 or 7 years ago. And a long way and a medium long-term commitment that we are creating with all the members of CICEG, mainly with the more 200 exporters. It is giving all the tools together with GRAP and Monica to our members, trying to understand that buyers from US and Canada are looking for companies that accomplish all the benefits that particularly have the GRAP, the 12 principles. In GRAP, we find the largest independent certification that helps us to assure the companies are competing correctly against China. As you know, China has a lot of potential in manufacturing, in volume, etc. Mexico have additional advantages as 0% duties, as speed to market, speed to reorders, and we are adding the certification Codex, as I said, and GRAP as the tool to take advantage, getting projects from US and from Canada in particular. We have been developing more than 4 or 5 companies during these years, companies that are now working with Clark's, for example, with Vince Camuto, with these huge, big companies that are mainly in China, but are diversifying the sourcing in Mexico. So answering to your question, GRAP is one certification that we are promoting with the companies, and year by year incrementing the companies that have this certification.
Thank you, Daniel. And we certainly very much appreciate the support that Gildan and the Mexican Footwear Chamber have shown RAP over the years. On a practical note, though, you did mention there are multiple buyers that your clients deal with. And Herman, you also said that there are different standards that you want to make sure that the Gildan facilities are adhering to. And over the years, we have heard a little bit about this, different buyers requiring different audits and having multiple audits, and the whole reality of audit fatigue. What are your thoughts? And I'll start with you, Herman, about meeting social compliance requirements when you have these different programs that insist on multiple audits. What's the experience of Gildan's facilities, and how do you manage that? And then we'll hear from Daniel's perspective on what his members have to say. Herman?
Thank you, Avedis. I believe making business with different type of retailers, customers around the world, put us on that scenario that you mentioned. I believe that's something that has been discussed for the past years in this type of industry, when we get to the famous word audit fatigue, how factories address it, how factories can live with this. In our case, we are here, even though we are experiencing audit fatigue in some of our facilities based on the business and the styles that we produce, we ensure we comply with what our buyers and customers want. That's the reason why I believe Gildan, it's quite particular on the business that we manage, because we have different type of social accreditations to satisfy the customer's requirements. So we switch from RAP to a CEDEX Meta, and then we switch to an SLCP, because that's the different programs, let's say the ones accepted right now by customers. So based on what the customer need and their expectations, we are going to be following their rules and their requirements. Usually what we have been doing is we have been demonstrating the sustainable practices that we along the years we have implemented with the different programs that we have. For example, working with RAP for the last 15 years has helped us to ensure not only passing an auditing process or an accreditation, but implement sustainable practices, including trainings, risk assessment studies, everything that integrates workers and ensure conditions are maintained. So going back to your question, we adapt to what buyers, customers, and the retailers needs and what they ask us as a social certification that will be accepted.
That's certainly the reality many factories face, and I have some thoughts on that I'll share in a minute, but I want to hear from Daniel, his perspective on this as well before I provide mine.
Yes, I'm agree with you, German. You mentioned something very interesting, the sustainable practices. During in Mexico, particularly the manufacturing footwear and leather goods in Mexico, has been developing the different programs. We have many opportunity areas. As you know, the USMCA, the free trade agreement we have with Canada and the US, has on some clauses the compliance with laws and workplace regulations, of course, the prohibition of discrimination, and also the freedom of association. So that is something that we should accomplish with the USMCA, and it's something that we are training and promoting with RAP. Depending on the customers, not all the customers are looking for this kind of infrastructure, but we have the target number 3, which is increasing businesses with American brands, with important American brands. As I said before, people from Target, from TJ Maxx, for work with someone in Mexico, they are applying a technical factory assessment. And part of this technical factory assessment is to accomplish the 12 principles that RAP is including on the program. For us, working with Americans has been an experience of growing up and learn. As I said, many business on the past cannot be completed because of the lack of infrastructure, but now Mexico have a new generation of companies that are commitment with the security and customs, with, of course, the environment, of course, this kind of the provision of child labor that we used to see 30 years ago in Mexico. Now, if you visit a factory, it's not possible to see kids. So very careful with this, and we are working also with the León, Guanajuato's government to try to accomplish the basics of what.
Great. Thank you, Daniel. Very interesting, as you point out, that there are buyers that have different requirements depending on sort of their level of sophistication and complexity. And Herman, you pointed out yourself that your manufacturers often feel bound by the expectations of the buyer, and in some sense, the power equation isn't quite as balanced there. We're going to talk in a few minutes here about COVID and the impact it has had on manufacturing and on social responsibility. But a good lead into that is that the whole idea of efficiency and flexibility in supply chain operations, which COVID highlighted as an absolute necessity, was already coming up to the fore even before COVID. And you were starting to hear in reaction to audit fatigue and in reaction to a bunch of other challenges, pushback from programs and facilities to brands saying, why do you feel you need to do your own audit when we have a RAP certificate, when we have this other program that we have in place? And you were starting to see that shift already, highlighted perhaps by the sort of biggest player out there, the world's largest retailer, Walmart, moving away from their proprietary program. 3-4 years ago, they made the decision to stop doing their own audits and recognizing a handful of programs, RAP among them, as being adequate for their needs. This move was, as I said, pre-pandemic, but in the course of the pandemic, other brands and retailers really came to understand that having the reality of not being able to do their own audits and being forced to look around for alternative ways of due diligence and assessing a facility and being told, well, we have a RAP certificate, will that suffice? And it turns out, yes, it's perfectly sufficient to meet their needs. I think one reality we are seeing is brands recognizing that some of this due diligence processes that they need to have in place as responsible players, responsible buyers, need to be efficient, need to be credible. And so the existence of independent programs out there is indeed something that they are paying closer attention to. So we are anticipating an improvement in the audit fatigue situation. And so if one can see that as something of a silver lining in the COVID pandemic, then perhaps that's one good thing that may come of it. But more generally, as we explore sort of systems-based approaches, as both of you intimated, having facilities already RAP certified do put those factories in a better position, even if the buyer insists on something else, because they have the systems in place, they have the protocols in place, and are able to meet anyone's demands. Hopefully, it shouldn't come to that. That certification should itself be enough as we talk about more efficient ways of supply chain operations. And that brings us back to the COVID question and the challenge it has posed to supply chain operations. So I'll start again with you, Germán. What has the impact of COVID been on your operations, and perhaps also more broadly on your practices with regards to social compliance?
Good question, Avedis. So as you know, and the audience today know, we were not prepared for this unfortunate situation that we are still facing and living around the world. At the beginning, we having operation worldwide, we go into some furloughs in the different countries where we operate. We offer and we ensure that our workers were safe and provide some compensation packages so they can afford the pandemic and the COVID during some months. At the same time, our company has been focused on apparel business. But when we say apparel, we are talking about basic t-shirts, underwear, socks. So I believe the company changed a little bit the mindset and start making new products. So we start development some products for the past months. The company start making some masks to be sold in different markets as well, and gowns. So we start bringing back some of our workers, ensuring we have sanitary conditions and a really established biosecurity protocol that can confirm and ensure our workers will be safe. Talking about that, some of our countries came back, some of our workers in some of our countries, specifically in Latin America, Central America, and the Caribbean, we start making masks and gowns, ensuring all these safety, health and safety conditions were available for workers. In addition to that, we ensure that we have a really robust team of doctors in our facilities and nurses that can support all these follow-up and tracking when you are talking about workers, the conditions, the cafeteria conditions, the personal protective equipment, trainings, reminders on a daily basis that needs to be implemented or reinforced on a daily basis to ensure your workers will not get infected. These had been, I believe, and we are still struggling the consequences of the COVID and all the pandemic. But I believe that having strong systems in place and a fast reaction to what the market is expecting from you as a company makes you to come back on track and find a way to operate with your own facilities. Maybe when you are from a buyer perspective, it's quite different because that's another scenario. But when you own the facilities, you are in charge of all that workforce. So in our case, we were really concerned about that. Was our first and main concern, our workers, how they can survive and how they can continue having a decent life during this time. Right now, I believe our operations are a little bit more getting to normal business, making different type of products again. However, the biosecurity protocol and measures are still in place in all our locations, talking about going from temperature checks, personal protective equipment, and all that stuff.
Thank you, Herman. You made a very interesting point about sort of a differing perspective on how you view workers, whether you're a buyer just contracting out or somebody that actually owns those operations. And I'll come back to that in a minute as we talk a little bit about some of the spotlight that COVID has cast on buyer behavior. But we'll circle back to that. I want to hear from Daniel, his views with regards to sort of COVID's impact. And if you would also tell us, Daniel, how things are right now in Leon and in Mexico in general with regards to the pandemic.
With German, and let me tell you, Avedis, that the reality of the industry during the first month of COVID is that
we seem to have some audio challenges, Daniel. We can't hear you. Still can't hear you. While we try and get Daniel's audio back, let me get back to you, Herman, and follow up on that point about different perspectives. As an organization that sort of is vertical and you own those operations, you do put those workers sort of at the center and have that perspective. What have you heard? I mean, one of the themes that has sounded over the course of the pandemic has been, this highlighting of that stark difference between the sort of the power balance, and you heard about the challenges that the various factories faced with buyers who weren't paying for orders because the buyers couldn't sell them, but the work had been done, and so the whole idea of responsible buying behavior has become something that's being talked about a lot more these days. What is your perspective? And as an organization in the compliance space, it does speak specifically to the domino effect of bad buyer behavior results in socially irresponsible manufacturing practices at the factory. So what is your perspective on that, and where do you see this headed in the post-pandemic world?
Talking about our perspective as a maker, as a company operating own facilities, we take the control, and we control the operations and the benefits, or the elements that we provide to workers. When I switch and go to the buyer perspective, where we have only a 10% of our revenues, we ensure from that side of the business that orders were not canceled to our contractors. We pay for those orders during that process of the pandemic and during the furloughs in the different countries. So we ensure that contractor workers were being paid, or we pay those orders to our contractor facilities, working really close. And I believe that's something really important that you mentioned. These responsible sourcing topic and everything regarding that communication between the different sourcing teams in the companies with social compliance teams. That's something that in our company we maintain really close. What our sourcing teams and the sourcing decisions that will be taken with contractor facilities, how that can impact workers, how that can impact our company and how we can have consequences of doing something that it's not aligned to our business practices. So talking about that 10%, as I mentioned we ensure our contractors were paid, the orders that were allocated prior to the furlough were paid, and ensure that our contractor facilities paid to their workers.
Excellent. Thank you.
Let's see. Can you hear me, Avedis?
Voice back.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And I apologize for inconvenience. Now, if you hear me, I was touching about the COVID. The situation in León during the COVID was very, very bad. As I said before, we closed about 90% or the 100% of manufacturer companies. While we start making masks, medical masks for Mexico, of course, the exports went down. Many of the US buyers decided to stop buying because of the COVID. But after these months, I want to share that on this first semester of 2021, we are recovering the exports now. We are increasing 53%. The exports mainly to United States, maybe 82% of the exports goes to the US, and now the GDP of the industry goes to 210% of increasing against 2020. Now, if we compare 21 to 19, we are still in a process of recovering by minus 34 on the GDP of the sector of the industry. We implement a healthy and safety protocol for the industry in order to be sure all of our members are doing exactly as German mentioned, all the safety procedures, accessing to the company, this kind of links of before they access to the company, all the protocols that they need to follow, with one idea and with one objective to bring security to the potential buyers coming to Mexico on 2020. Now on 2021, we developed our show. It's a trade footwear show called Zapica. This last August, we received about 100 buyers from the US, all vaccinated, all with the idea to restart businesses with Mexico. And I want to touch something, you said something about the supply chain. The supply chain in Mexico now is not just about materials or components. Now is about what the final consumer is looking for in a brand. Now the final consumer online or on physical, they are looking to know more about the brand. They are looking to know if the people who is manufacturing the product is receiving health and safety, if they are receiving freedom of association, if the people, the handmade, the people that is making shoes is receiving all the hours of work. So that's why the GRAB certification is the best partner we can get in Mexico to be sure to accomplish not just the necessities of a brand that is making product in China or in Vietnam, is to be sure that the final consumer is going to find a product that is accomplished with the international global requirements. I'm not sure if in that part I'm clear.
No, very, very clear. And you make an excellent point in sort of highlighting the fact that the supply chain really is bigger and broader than just the buyer and the manufacturer. Most of us tend to focus on that exchange and look at that and see how things are impacted, but it is a chain. And in the end, you've got all sort of things happening around it in terms of the regulatory environment in which the chain operates, plus, of course, the final consumer whose demands are then going to trickle over and drive some of the behavior all along that chain. And that is another thing that the COVID pandemic has really brought to light, right? The fact, as the saying goes, that a chain is only as strong as its weakest link, but we are all connected to each other. And so the kind of behavior we were talking about and Herman's sort of position and Gildan's sort of positive approach to make sure that you are keeping your promises and supporting those that are further down the chain from you, because in the end, however cliched it may sound, we are all in this together, and we're all going to come out of this together, or we're not going to come out of it at all. So that's one of those things that I think is really brought to the forefront by the pandemic. And in fact, everybody is hurt, everybody is impacted, but those that have been able to emerge faster, better, less impacted than others, such as, for example, Gildan, are the ones that, like them, have been approaching it from a more holistic perspective, understanding that it is a partnership, it is a supply chain, and if they're going to have some bad activity here, it'll have a knock-on effect all the way down there. So definitely something that RAP has been encouraging. We are literally a chain. We're in this together. We have to come out of it together, and that includes responsible behavior along each point of the chain. Another interesting point that you brought up that I want to spend a few minutes exploring, and I know we're getting close to the questions time here, is the role of the consumer and how it is evolving and changing sort of with the time. And since you brought it up, let me start with you. I've always, heard tell that consumers are going to drive some social responsible behavior, but the reality is that consumers tend to be well, they're not monolithic, for one thing, right? Different consumers behave differently, and they do tend to be very price sensitive. They're also good at expressing outrage, right? They will boycott bad actors, and that's wonderful. You want to send that signal out there, but getting them to consistently support good actors is a little bit harder. So what are your thoughts on sort of the increasing role consumers may or may not be playing? Where do you feel they are, and what is driving some of those trends? And then I'll come to you for the same question, Herman.
Right. Well, thank you, Avedis. That's correct. The consumer change here in the Mexican Footwear Chamber, we divided the segments of buyers in five segments. The target number 5 is high volume of manufacturing pairs and low prices. For that particular niche is China. Okay, we can adopt some programs, but it's not our aim. The aim of Mexico is talking about the consumer, and the brands we are looking for is to develop. I have here a brand from Mexico, this kind of high level quality footwear that can compete with any level of industry, as the Italian, as the Portuguese, as the Spain one, right? The consumer now is willing to spend or to invest in a footwear or in a shoe just if the promise of the shoe will be comfort shoes, high level of quality, of course, a product that in the back supply chain accomplish the requirements of, as I said, not forced labor, the hours, etc. The consumer now, Avedis and German, is expecting to have a product that accomplish with fashion, that accomplish with rules, and that has a very nice, long-last, perdurable shoe. Is what they are looking for. In the US, as we know, the consumers are buying about 7 shoes per person, no? By records that we have. So as I said, our niche, talking about the consumer, is to bring the best quality with the best certification, so we can be sure we can complete the right chain as RAP, Codex, and the technical assessment of the brands, no?
Indeed, and that certainly is one good-looking boot over there, Daniel.
Right.
Herman, what are your thoughts on the consumer and as sort of a brand that gets to engage with them directly a lot? What are you seeing as far as trends go?
So in addition to what Daniel mentioned, I believe it's really important to address that our consumers these days are asking, demanding, and requiring ethical practices in the places where the products are manufactured. In the case of Gildan, specifically, our company has been working on all the ESG topics for the past 17, 20 years, making, these CSR reports or our ESG public reports for the past 17 years, where we share with our audience, with our investors and stakeholders, how the company operates from a financial perspective, but going into details regarding environmental aspects, community investment, and social compliance aspects, going into details of the employees that manufacture what you are using or what you are buying. So that's the reason why in Gildan we take really serious these social compliance topics. We have been part, and we get into new programs or new fashion trends like Who Make My Clothes to ensure to our consumers the way our products are made, ethically made in our own facilities, complying with local and international standards that can ensure that we don't have inadequate practices in our supply chain. So I believe what our consumers are expecting is that you have all these practices in place. At the same time, I believe you mentioned a really important word in here. It's a holistic approach to what you are doing. And in addition to that, a due diligence process that it's really important, and it's a key element on your operations. Having a due diligence that can ensure that you are selecting the right factories to produce. It's one of the main and most important things that you can decide on your supply chain to ensure you will not have different type of sensitive topics or problems coming from a social compliance perspective.
I want to add something, if you let me, Avedis.
Go ahead, Daniel. That's an excellent point worth following up on.
Exactly. I talked to you about the target number 5, volume and low prices, but we are opening a new market in the US. We're starting working with the National Shoe Retailer Association. They are about 400 and something members, 450 members, and they have about 1,700 retail stores. What they are looking for is exactly what, as I said, high quality products made in North America, Mexico, could be Canada, could be Central America, I don't know. And they are looking for companies where they can have the correct partner and thinking in the final consumer. They don't want problems. They don't want problems with restricted substances. They don't want problems with bad ethical practices. They don't want problem with manufacturers that could have a situation on compliance on laws or workplace regulations. So that's an example that is changing our industry. They are looking to diversify from China. They don't want shoes from $20, $15. They want shoes starting from 40 going to 70. So they can have a final product to the consumer at 210 or 250. For example, this boot can go in 280, 280 to the final consumer. And this target with an independent store are looking for this kind of products diversifying from China. No, China is a good competitor, but we have a key, which is, as I say, the USMCA, the GRAP certification, the Codex certification, and going directly to the new consumer and this new supply chain.
Indeed, Daniel, great point there. And you know, one other thing, both of you sort of spoke about the changing consumer attentions and level of informed consumer. And you mentioned in that context, in a different setting, Herman, the sort of due diligence requirements. That reminds me also of another space where due diligence is often talked about, and that's on the finance side. And just as consumers are becoming more informed and demanding, expecting certain behaviors from the brands and retailers that they spend their money with, the investment community is also becoming considerably more attentive to ESG metrics and social responsibility in particular, whether it's big players like Berkshire Hathaway and then BlackRock, or whether it's some of the dedicated socially responsible investor firms. You're seeing a lot more attention being paid by folks who are making decisions on where dollars will be invested as far as industries and individual players go. And obviously, when you hear BlackRock, which has over $1 trillion with a T dollars in assets it manages, making it clear their expectation to the CEOs of the publicly funded companies that they invest in, that there has to be a social purpose to their work, then you definitely are seeing the reality that this is not something that your typical consumer and typical investor are paying a lot more attention to. And I should be paying a lot more attention to the time, because we have about 10 minutes left, and there are a bunch of questions that I want to get to in the chat. And Jason, I'll call on you if you see anything on Facebook that you are hearing questions about. By all means, jump in and ask. But I have a few here in the chat that I'll get started. And one of them is an interesting one, right? Daniel, your members, and then Herman, your company Gildan, take social responsibility seriously, and are obviously taking actions in accordance with that belief. But not all buyers are at the same level of attentiveness. What about those that do not take social compliance seriously? What should be done? And is that one of the reasons why we're seeing an increased interest on the legislative side, on governments to regulate this industry? Is that an answer, a good thing or a bad thing? What are your thoughts on that? I'll start with you, Daniel, and then Herman will take your thoughts on it too.
Well, that's an excellent question, and it's a question that also our members and manufacturers ask. They said why I should do for example, the GRAP certification if the buyer is not asking for one certification. That's why we have a package of audits. Let me go back. We have the export competitiveness program, where we need to be sure about the cost, the quality, and the infrastructure. Inside of these three components, we are adding the GRAP, the basics of GRAP, to let the companies understand that the export is not a casualty. It's not a casualty. The exports, the companies, the vision should be, as I said, a vision for the future. The buyers that are not asking for this kind of certification or social responsibility, I cannot tell you that are working with Mexico, because we need to be sure to create a good partner for a long term of period. Okay, the companies that are looking for $2 shoe or $3 shoe, they can go to other places, not in Mexico. We don't want that kind of projects, because they are looking for low price that we cannot afford, because for us to maintain a certification is not easy. It's a matter of continuous audits, to an investment in the factories, in administration, So what we say to the buyers that are not looking to have a GRAP certification, we evaluate the profile of the buyer, we evaluate the bag, the references, and we propose them to work together maybe the first 6 months or 1 year of period. Okay, we start working with you, but we propose you to develop together a program of 6 or 12 months until you have the GRAP certification. That is the aim and the spirit of the Mexican Footwear Chamber. And I'm not sure if I'm answering the question, Avedis.
I think that's certainly a perspective, and answers definitely a part of it. Herman, do you have a different angle on that?
No, it's similar, Avedis. I believe social compliance in the apparel industry, it's crucial for factory operations, beyond ensuring health and safety, ethical practice conditions for employees. Social compliance is the link between ethics and business more broadly. So each day consumers will come and request and demand systems in place that ensure and guarantee that you have the conditions for workers. So it's quite similar, my response to that question.
Indeed.
Yes. And as a vision of Avedis, as a vision of industries in apparel, footwear, the vision should be in a term of 3 or 4 years, take our companies to the best possible level to compete against any country. So we need to continue developing and training the companies if we want to really be in the market for the near future.
I think you highlight a great point there, Danielle, with regards to the value of it, the need for longer term thinking, seeing where your behaviors today might not be particularly good because you're not going to be around to, continue in business if you stay. Whereas more investment now might mean a little less profit at the moment, but longer term, it's going to be a much smarter play. And that's a great point and a much more appropriate mindset to think about with regards to social responsibility as an investment, not a cost.
Correct.
The questions keep coming in. I want to make sure we get to as many of these as we can. This one is a pretty straightforward one that I can handle directly. One person is asking, what is the difference between a certification program and an audit? That's a great question. You bring out a valuable point. A certification program is going to be one like RAP, where you have an audit, but you are measuring what you are seeing against a standard and determining whether or not that standard is met. And if, for example, the facility falls short in certain areas, you put together a corrective action plan that then brings them up to that final level, and you might need another audit to check that all is well, and then you get the certificate that validates that the standard has been met. As opposed to an audit program, which simply is just an audit, it goes out there and sees what's happening and gives a report, but doesn't require adherence to a standard, doesn't then follow up with a corrective action plan if certain areas fall short. I like to think of it very similar to going to the doctor and getting a lab result of a blood test and being told, okay, that's it. Go figure out for yourself what needs to happen. That's the audit. A certification is when the doctor sits with you and tells you, all right, so your cholesterol needs work, your blood sugar levels are here. This is what you need to do. The corrective action that follows. That's what a certification program is. It provides a much more holistic, much more valuable assessment than just an audit. Daniel?
I want to share, Avedis, just to clarify and to provide with an answer. For example, here in Leon, we are working, we make a certification for audits for a boot leather Western company. So they took the certification for the person who will audit and who will lead a program. Okay, so this person goes inside of the company to the boot company, and they start developing the 12 principles one by one. The manual, start working, preparing the company for an audit of RAP to accomplish all the points that are in the manual. Once they are ready, they call RAP. RAP make the audit, and if the audit goes good, then they can give a certification. So now with this Western boot company, we're in the process to develop maybe on 4 or 5 months the manual of RAP, prepare the team, and be ready for an audit, and then to get the certification. I'm not sure if this sample goes good.
Yeah, thank you, Daniel. All right, in a couple of minutes we have left, we have a very good and practical question that I'm going to come to you, Herman, with. How can small buyers and startups ensure socially responsible sourcing when their volumes are small? When you're big like Gildan, you can have a great program, but when you're small, just starting up, what is your advice?
I believe that it doesn't matter if you are big or small or medium company. You can start implementing from scratch a program. I can tell you at the beginning, 20 years ago, Gildan didn't have like a big portfolio of brands like we have today. We sell not only Gildan, but we have Comfort Colors, Anvil, American Apparel, Goto. So it's a company that has been growing in the past years. So starting from scratch means that you need to create a holistic program, starting from a code of conduct, implementing basic policies and practices that you can start requiring to your factories. I believe starting with a code of conduct, it's a right path to continue adding value to your company, since your factories will see that you abide by good working conditions and ethically practices required to factories around the world.
Indeed, that is good advice, and certainly an area where RAP can be very helpful because you don't have to recreate the wheel, and you can simply adopt the RAP program and have that be the start, as Herman described it. We are unfortunately out of time. It has been a fascinating conversation. It's always a good measure in my mind on how quickly the time goes by when you're having these discussions. I want to thank Herman and Danielle for the great conversation we had, and always thank you, Jason, and the team at ATS for the opportunity. I wish all of you the very best and hope you found this to be an instructive and informative and enjoyable hour. Jason, back to you.
Thank you, gentlemen. That was a fantastic dialogue. It's just always fascinating to hear how this topic changes year to year and the new discussion points. So thank you very much. Our next session, Sustainable Influencers, How to Embrace and Advocate for Sustainability, will be beginning at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in about half an hour here. In the meantime, I encourage everybody to go check out the 100 plus exhibiting manufacturers we have at the show. I will post the virtual landing page here in the chat so that everybody can head over there if you don't have a window open already. In there, you can find the show office, which is where we will have the ATS staff, attendees. It's basically our version of the show floor. So if you want to go in there, it's a great place to network, connect with suppliers, and also, like I said, ATS staff and some of our speakers will be in and out of that room all day as well. Also take a look at our 3 exhibition rooms. We have room 3 featuring our China suppliers, room 2 with our Indian suppliers, and room 1 is suppliers from the United States, Canada, Portugal, Mongolia, Bangladesh, and India. I'm sorry, Brazil. Also, if anybody wants to review this panel discussion or any of our other seminars, I've just included the YouTube channel link for the ATS YouTube channel. Just make sure to go ahead and subscribe, and you will get notifications on when those videos are posted, generally about a week from the show's conclusion. So thanks again, gentlemen. Take care. Look forward to seeing you in person, hopefully. I know I keep saying that, but we'll just kick that can down the road until we see each other again.
Looking forward to it, Jason. Thank you. And thank you again, Herman and Danielle. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.